I'm Mike Costello, and I'm here with Dr. Iris Freelander, and today we'd like to talk to you about using inner resources to find our way. And every one of us has inner resources or guidance if we simply open ourselves to be guided and directed in so many, many ways. And there's nothing so very complicated about the concept, is there, Iris?
No, it's not complicated, but we often sell ourselves short thinking that we have to have a guidance from somewhere else. Where if we look within, everything is there, all information is there. It's accessing that information and being self-confident and knowing that that's true, and knowing also that each person, including us, is a part of Creator God. And so as we look at ourselves in that light, we see that we have far more available for our use within us if we just access it. And then we have to slow down enough to do that.
Yeah, from a very practical standpoint, I think the slowing down is a hard thing, isn't it? You know, in today's environment, we seem to all be so busy doing this or doing that. But if we slow down our commitments and our lives, and we slow down our thought processes and the operation of our mind, we then are open to this creative flow and this creative power that we talk about in this program. And we're able to access a new dimension or a different dimension than just the limited guidance and ideas and thoughts that we might have. On this program, we talk so much about metaphysics and new thought and philosophy and psychology, and we put it all together. And of course, the topic or the title of our program is always Confident Living. And so we try to share concepts and ideas with our viewers that allow them to live confident lives. And having the ability to connect with something beyond ourselves from a spiritual sense, of course, is very fundamental to what we teach. But from a mental standpoint, it's a very major part of metaphysics and new thought. But we do have to, or we should, we don't have to do anything, but we should slow down and, as we've spoken often in this program, be conscious of the present moment and be more focused.
Yes, and when we are, then we're more able to do the things we would like to do and to know what we would like to know. And sometimes we pray that very thing, may I know what I need to know and do as I should do, see as I should see, and be as I should be. But it's all the intent. And if our intent is to access inner knowledge, which is within every person, then that's what we do. But if we go so fast that we don't remember that, then we become distracted and discordant, and everything is energy and vibration. So we create discordant energy around us. And we can all see it in our lives. I certainly can see it in mine. When I rush too fast, then the mistakes are made. And we can all see that in our lives. And so everyone, I would just encourage our listeners to know that they have all the information available within them, or they would know where to go to get it. I know there's been times I've needed specific information. Once I went to a bookstore here in Long Beach where I had bought a lot of books, and I asked the lady to help me find a certain book that I wanted written by a specific author. And she says, I don't have any books by her. And I said, well, you must have books by Ruth Montgomery. And so I went down there, and sure enough, she had one book that I wanted, so I went down to buy that. And I sat down in a little chair that, like the children use in the schools, and just sat there waiting for her to help the customer she was working with. And it came to me to go to a certain place in the store. So I went over to a certain place and pulled out one book, and it was the one I needed. It was the very book I needed, and that's a very good example. And it wasn't because I'm clever, it's because I just sat there relaxed, and then the advice I'm giving our listeners, that's what I did. And so we can all do that. And if we forget that we can't do it, then we can't. But if we remember that we can, then we can.
That the concept that you just shared, which is remembering,
Yeah.
and often we use play on words to remember or to make points. But as we remember ourselves to infinite intelligence and to limitless potential, then we open the door of our minds and our hearts and our lives and our souls to all of those things that we need. And of course, from a spiritual standpoint, we know that as we do that, wonderful things happen. From a practical standpoint, you just gave a great example of the fact that that happens. And so as our conscious mind connects with that infinite intelligence, then it can become a part of our subconscious and our supraconscious connection with infinite intelligence all the time. I think it's interesting that the best teachers teach us how to bring things out of ourselves as opposed to banging. You know, we think of school so often and the experiences putting things into children's heads. And of course, there are certain things that we put into their heads, but the larger and the grander part of it, of the educational process from a practical standpoint, is to bring out that which we already know. And for those of us who play musical instruments, and I don't play as much as I used to and don't play as well as I used to because I'm too busy, but I do remember the times when I used to practice the piano or the organ and play a lot more than I do today. And as I'd work on a piece and I would work it up, and that creative aspect of my life would be expressed in it, and after doing it over and over again, then all of a sudden I was connected with the ability to play the piece, and it was as if I always knew it, and of course I did. And it is that connection that we're talking about, and it is that inner guidance, and that inner guidance from a practical standpoint can bring us the guidance that we need in the most difficult times of our lives as well.
Yes, and as that's happening in our lives, we feel unease, and then when we're not comfortable with what we're doing and rushing too fast, we're not really accessing that which we're seeking, then we feel discordance. And so we know then when we realize that we're feeling that discordant energy, it's time to just take deep breaths and slow down and not exactly start all over, but gear our actions to our own inner needs. And we can do that, but usually we forget when we most need it, don't we?
We do, and that connection also has to do with our physical bodies as well, and that's another word is dis-ease. And so a lot of our diseases or a lot of our illnesses, not all of them, but certainly not all of them, but many of them have to do with our dis-ease with our own abilities to connect with the things that we need most, and with our own image and our own idea and our own vision and our own ability to see ourselves in perfection and health. And we know that healing comes about through that manifestation and through that technique.
Yes, and we see that in our own lives, in the lives of others, and in the lives of children. Children who are allowed to be themselves and play freely. And I don't mean to be destructive or things they shouldn't do, but taught and then allowed to just be free, are so much more happy, and they are more productive in their play. And the children who are told no, 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 and the parents are tense and making the child tense, you can see that in children. And when I watch children in a playground and several playing together, you can tell the ones who are non-structured but disciplined and taught. And it's just a joy to see. And the children today are all, I think, very advanced souls, because they're all just so in the way they relate verbally, to everyone else, to the adults. It's respectful, but they have a certain self-esteem that shows through. And that's very lovely to see, isn't it?
That issue of self-esteem is a very big part of connecting with our inner guidance, isn't it? And having a positive self-image. That, I think, probably that's one of the fundamental things that we can do from a practical standpoint that can enrich our lives and give us the confident lives that we need to have.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and it works for children, for adults as well as children, and all ages in between. And when someone is telling us we can't do something, or it's beyond our means, mentally or physically or any other way, then very often we believe them, and it affects our work output. And then other times we just rebel and say, well, I'll show them. And then we really do it through just sheer willpower. But it's lovely when people are just encouraged, and then they can go at their own pace. But and then we can treat ourselves that way too, because very often we beat ourselves to death and then have an adverse effect. Where if we just have self-confidence, then everything is a lot more easy to accomplish.
Yeah. So often on this program we talk about the fact that words and thoughts do create.
Yeah.
And so we create our world in so many ways. And as we're positive and affirmative in our view of the world, of those around us, of life, as we live with expectation and with hope and happiness and joy and the positive attributes, we then, again, open that door and become much more than the closed being that sometimes happens when we become oppressed with negativity. And I do equate negativity in many ways with oppression. We oppress our souls, we oppress our minds, we oppress our lives, and we defeat ourselves, and we create within ourselves something that really ought not to be there. And we stop that natural and wonderful flow of life.
Yes, and then we are able to speak up if we have been allowed to. Then we're able to speak up other times. I saw a child one day this week, an adult said to that child, a very small child, called him flatfoot or paddlefoot or some kind of foot. And the child said, "Don't call me that." And I thought that was wonderful. And the adult was taken aback. But it's wonderful. And he didn't say it meanly. The child didn't say it meanly. Neither said it meanly. Mm-hmm. But one was just using a slang term, and the other didn't. And the child didn't like it. But he just stood straight and said, "Don't call it," very firmly. And that's lovely to see, because children who are allowed to do that then are more happy later on in their lives and more fulfilled in their lives. And again, we have to give the same respect to ourselves, and we have to give ourselves that same opportunity that we would give others.
Mm-hmm. And as we do, we become more empowered and more happy and more joy-filled. We'd like to pause at this point in the program and offer you some information about our activities and our fellowship.
Mike and Iris invite you to be with them every Sunday morning at the magnificent and historic Scottish Rite Cathedral, located at 855 Elm Avenue in Long Beach. Our worship service and Sunday school begin at 11 a.m. Angelus Unity Cathedral Church at the Scottish Rite Cathedral meets in the only true cathedral church located in the city of Long Beach. This magnificent grand building is a true architectural jewel. The service begins at 11 a.m. and there is Sunday school for the children. There is always plenty of free parking in the cathedral lot. Mike and Iris look forward to meeting you and your family this Sunday. People of all faiths are always welcome. We will be saving you a seat this Sunday at Angelus Unity Cathedral Church at the Scottish Rite Cathedral. You will be warmly welcomed.
in the last half of the program, maybe we could devote some thought to, or some time to, some practical aspects of how people can cultivate a positive self-image and allow that positive self-image to allow that inner guidance to come out, and that inner reality and inner radiance that we all have.
Yes. Well, first of all, we could start by giving other people the opportunity to be what we would like others to allow us to have the same opportunity. And always remember that we are a part of Creator God, and we're equally, every person is equally important. And so we don't make other people higher than we are, but we certainly don't try to be higher than anyone else in any way, in stature in any way. So if there's a leveling influence in that way, and we can work more fully and freely, I think, when we realize that truth, don't you?
Absolutely. We need to allow people to be where they are and to express life at whatever stage they find themselves and at whatever experience they find themselves. One of the things that we do in our church and our fellowship and our counseling and our outreach and our programs is we really strive to empower people, and to empower people to let go of judgment and to let other people be. And it's tremendously important, I think, for us to allow others to be where they are and to share with them in a positive way where we are. And we talk often in this program about the fact that we're never ever talking about people changing their faith tradition or trying to convert someone to some new religion or ask them to depart from some idea that they hold near and dear. But we are asking people to look at the way that they think and the way that they feel and determine whether or not that quality of life is the way they want their lives to be. And there are many, many people of all faiths and all walks of life and all nationalities and all ages and all socioeconomic backgrounds that are able to apply these universal principles that we talk about within the context of their own tradition. And we want that to happen. We need to let people be and not try so hard to make everyone like us, or not make everyone a duplicate of us, but of course we do want everyone to like us. But also we need to release people, and we need to do that within our family and within our work environment and within our community. We need to allow people to be the people that they are without judgment and without reservation.
That reminds me, I think that in California we do that more fully than they do in other parts of this country. Don't you think so?
I hope so. Hopefully we don't broadcast this program in some other states someday.
Well, if we do, then they might just look within and be more relaxed. But I think that we allow people here to be themselves and to not, we don't put judgment on them and say, and put them in airtight compartments, but rather we value individuality, and that's what we do when we allow people to be themselves. We allow them to express in an individual way. And I'm thinking now of that workshop we attended from the church Sunday a week ago, where everyone was being impromptu on things, and that's another good thing, to be relaxed and to be impromptu and be able to just take things as they come, and not to have everything pre-planned and too tightly put down, so that people have freedom to move and to relax. And of course, in employment, where people are employed, there are certain policies that have to be followed, certain rules that have to be followed. So I'm not saying that we change those things, I'm saying that in our personal life and the way we look at life, to allow others freedom of expression and movement and change, and encourage that in others. And if we value it in others, then it will be obvious that we value that. And if we all do, then everyone is more free. And spontaneity is so important. And sometimes we don't allow others to be spontaneous. So if we don't in our family life or friendship circle and so forth, then we might change and just see how much more delightful life can be.
Mm-hmm. So that really has to do with looking at ourselves, doesn't it? And looking at how it is we think, respond, and react to circumstances and situations. And it comes back to the issue of choice and freedoms, and it goes back to the ability that we all have to access the positive attributes and the infinite intelligence and the divine leadings that are within all of us. And that's the capital all. There's not one group that has a corner on the market of truth, and all of the concepts and ideas that we share are really a journey. And so we talk in this program about the journey, not about holding on to the jewel of truth or the solution. And you touched upon a very important aspect, and just as we come to the end of the program, I think it's important for us to remind ourselves and to remind our viewers always that no matter what any of us do, difficulties are going to come and challenges are going to be. And we, all of us, as human and spiritual and mental beings, need to understand and realize that wherever we are is all right. We need to honor the place where we are and then decide whether or not we need to begin to do the work, if you will, and to work on not being there anymore, or improving or connecting with that which is divinely inspired, that inner resource. And if we just do that, I think the world and those around us will see a radiance that comes from us and from our experience, and that vibration that we talk so much about will flow out from us and calls others to access that which flows out from them and honors the radiance that is their inner beauty as well.
Yes, and then everyone benefits. And not only we benefit most of all, because we're more relaxed and happy and productive, and then we're allowing others that same privilege. And so there's things that we can do. One is to the deep breathing. We always mention deep breathing here. Mm-hmm. We mention deep breathing and meditation all the time because those are not, they are in a sense a panacea, because they help us in every circumstance in life, whatever we're doing. If we just remember to deep breathe and to hold our spine straight. And of course, meditation doesn't take a lot of time. And a lot of people think, well, I don't have time to meditate. Well, it doesn't take all that much time. We're just attuning ourselves to attuning the divine within to Creator God, God the whole. And it just takes a moment sometimes to do that. Mm-hmm. And so when we do, we're more relaxed, spontaneous, and happy. And also, people want to follow us and follow our leadership, even if we're not in a leader position. It's obvious to others. And so it just makes life happier and brighter for everyone involved, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And it allows us to be more centered in our thinking and in our feeling and in our lives. And of course, the other aspect is to be uncluttered. Uncluttered in our thoughts, and uncluttered in our lives, and uncluttered in our activities, and just get down to the basics of what is truly and really important. And sometimes that means we have to give up certain things. And of course, from a family standpoint, from a human standpoint, from a community standpoint, we often need to detach from some of the busyness that we have and instead connect with that human and spiritual and mental dimension that we have one for another, and celebrate each other and spend some time with each other, just as children do, just as all happy and well-adjusted people do all over the world.
Yeah, and sometimes in order to accomplish that, we think we have to do whatever we do all the time and be so static. But we can start exercising if we already exercise in a different way. If we don't go for a walk, then we can go for a walk. And just the experts are all saying 20 to 30 minutes a day makes all the difference in the world in our bone structure and in our preventing osteoporosis and so forth. And so we can just take a quick walk and it gives us a different outlook on life. Or we can go into another room to meditate or to align ourselves. It's just a little bit of a change of pace often makes all the difference in the world.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that aspect of prioritizing and taking care of ourselves and taking care of those around us and instilling that in our children, in our families, and within those with whom we interact is so tremendously important.
Yes, it is. I can remember I used to teach in a school that was like a self-improvement sort of school, and people seemed always very surprised when we would teach them to dress the first thing in the morning, to get out of their night clothing into their street clothing first thing in the morning. They'd say, well, I don't have to because I don't have to go to work, or the days I don't have to go to work, I just like to lounge around. Well, that's okay to do that occasionally, but as a rule, if people would just get themselves in hand and do the things, the toilet article things they need to do, brush their hair and teeth and so forth, and change their clothing, it makes a difference in their outlook for the day. And it was back then, I could remember a lot of people would say, you know, that really made a difference in my life, because I thought it didn't. I thought I deserved to be able to just relax and be like a slob. But it's an attitude, isn't it?
Relaxation is an attitude. It's an internal action as opposed to an external action. And so often we believe that the external action is really what's important, but we can be in the midst of the most difficult times in our lives and be centered in peace. We really need that discipline. We all need that discipline in order absolutely to connect with this inner guidance that we are talking about in today's program. And it's wonderfully important for us to think about that.
It's not only important, it's imperative. If we want to have our lives be smooth running, and it doesn't matter what our financial status is. Other things nothing else matters. It's how we view ourselves and our lives that count, and it's how we look out at the world, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Cleanliness and order and a fresh new look at ourselves internally, externally, and all around us can go a long way for relieving the clutter, allowing us to be centered in life, allowing us to project a positive image, allowing us to be connected with the positive realities, and allowing us to be one with that infinite intelligence that will guide us and direct us and embrace us in all ways.
And then accepting ourselves and accepting others at face value.
Mm-hmm. And with that, I think that's a great way to end the program. We hope that the ideas and concepts that we've shared with you have been useful. We hope that you'll try some of them or all of them, and we look forward to seeing you next time.